thank you, Ken, for screening the film for us.
Thank you, Doug.
It's my second film here. The other one was 5 years ago. It takes me 5 years to make a film. My wife Laura is here, and my two kids are here, Valentina and Chiara, who are generous as extras. Anytime I needed a kid in some compromising social media setting, right to my own family. Does anyone have any questions about the movie? In the back, yes.
Thank you, Doug.
You're
Great job.
welcome. Thanks.
You and I are both from here and both from away. I'm curious the happiness you get from bringing your family here to a place of beauty.
I think about Maine all the time, you know, and I've tried to explain it to them with pictures and through videos and Zoom calls with the grandparents. But there's no replacing the real thing, you know. So they've been just fascinated with the whole place, and you know, I think Maine is a lovely place. So they don't, you know, I'm like, look, Dad, there's an acorn. No, that's a pine cone. Look, Dad, there's a caterpillar. No, that's just a rolled up dead leaf. You'll see a caterpillar. Maybe we did see an inchworm today. They're city kids. They've never seen snow, so that's just a process that'll just have to come when we start visiting more often or move back to the States. Yeah.
So, in the process of making the film, what impact did it have on your own level of happiness?
It had a profound impact on my happiness. You know, the federal minister of happiness was appointed when I got there, maybe the year before. Huda al-Rumi. She's no longer they don't have the position anymore. It's all built into the government, like a community development office or something now. But it did strike me that was a compelling thing for a government to do, to really, and it's not lip service. I mean, it's quite serious. I mean, there are things that are really annoying about it. If you're living in Dubai, I think my wife went to get her cell phone updated or something at a cell phone company, and this was at the beginning of the Happiness Initiative across the country, which isn't that big. Dubai's 2 million, 3 million when the tourists are. And she couldn't get into the building. And then the guy next to her was like, no, you have to smile at the camera. She's from Mexico City and does not suffer fools. And she's trying to get in, you know, and she can see people in there. You know, the guy's like, you have to smile. Cool. I mean, I guess you could be any kind of a smile. It was, you know, she smiled through her teeth at the thing, and the door's open. But across the board, there was a general feeling that, you know, I mean, you know, that this is a worthwhile effort, and that's why I should try to show it in the schools. So with my kids growing up over the past 5 years, my kids are 8 and 5, so I kept thinking about all this stuff, you know, in terms of the education and the social media stuff. But the most important takeaway for me, other than the monk, I spent time with that monk in Kathmandu, and it's hard not to have your perspective challenged when you're hanging out with a monk all day long. Although, I did ask him if anything annoyed him, because it was one of my questions. People didn't want to talk about that, but he did, and he said, he doesn't get annoyed, he doesn't get angry, but he likes to get a Frappuccino down the street at a Starbucks down the hill every Friday, and that day, some construction worker had screwed something up on the monastery, so he couldn't go for his Frappuccino, and that was bothering him quite a bit. But which I didn't know what to say, but I thought I'd get it for you. And then, but the main takeaway was that it's just not, I was forced to think about it because I was not so happy in New York and then had to deal with Dubai, whatever this place was going to be. But I also found that a lot of people, maybe most people, don't think about it, you know, at all. They just go through their life. And I know that's true because when I ask them, they really can't answer. You know, what's your idea of happiness, or what is your idea of contentment, or what do you do to make yourself content? You know, people say, I don't know, I'm not sick, you know, or they say that they don't. So I mean, that had an effect on me because I was constantly thinking about the way of telling that story. So, way in the back.
As you traveled, you probably had to cut down, but did you see evidence of other initiatives that were focused on happiness or well-being in others that you had to cut out of the film?
There were other stories that were on the cutting room floor for various reasons, but you know, again, making the film myself over the course of 4.5 years, I was really able to sort of cherry pick the things that I wanted. If the interviews didn't work out, I just didn't shoot them. So I was an editor before I became a director for years in New York. And I was an editor when the reality television phase came into the world. So I've been given 2,000 hours of footage to make something happen. And that's why I stopped editing. So one of the great things about directing yourself is like I'm editing with the camera when I'm shooting. And my shooting ratio is way lower than most people.
People who will have first exposure to that area, to Dubai, but the way you captured it was really beautiful and real of the kids. I really appreciate that.
Thank you, I appreciate that. There are documentaries and shows about Dubai. And if you live there long enough, or you're an expat and had a good life there, you feel compelled to sort of set the record straight a little bit. Like, 'cause it's everyone thinks it's just Lamborghinis, you know, and oil money flowing everywhere, and it's not. I mean, as Paul Burt, the priest in the beginning, says, it's 85% expats, which means it's really a very diverse place. People from all over the world living there. So.
Yeah, the traveling that happened, was that did that stem from the interviews you did with these people from?
Both. A lot of it was shot pre-pandemic, and my wife has traveled for her job, and so she would bring me and the kids. I'm the man behind the woman over there in a lot of cases, and which is fine. Kids play golf. So if we went to Austria for work or something, or Romania, which didn't make it in, but that's, you know, I would film over there on location, or Kyiv when we were in Kiev, you know, and Lviv, and then I would go back to Dubai and find someone from that city. And usually I knew somebody that I thought was pretty interesting, but often I was recommended somebody. And then when people started talking about the monks, you know, when that Zimbabwean brave man mentioned the monk, I was like, I looked around in Dubai, and they're not really legit monks, you know, like there's like Buddhist temples that they're all meditation stuff. And I always wanted to go to Kathmandu, so. And there was another Colby grad, Brent Willey, from a year or two ahead of me, who was living there in Kathmandu, so that was an excuse for me. And that's a quick trip from Dubai, 4.5 hours, and a horrifying landing. You just close your eyes and pray. But. Anybody else? Yes, sir.
What was the budget?
Maybe $50,000.
5 years?
Yeah. Because the pandemic stopped everything for quite a bit. I'm slow. I mean, I'm working on other stuff while I was doing this. So, yeah, I mean, it may be more than that, maybe less than that, but I mean, it's basically, I mean, if I paid myself, it'd be $500,000 film. Right? I mean, if I paid the DP, an editor, a director, a producer, a writer, a location scout, whatever else I did have the music, which I felt there would be too many credits. Guitar noodling. I had to learn how to play Middle Eastern things because I couldn't find the samples in the stock music that were not cheesy, not just like, you know, snake raising Egyptian cartoon music, you know. So I learned how to play some of the guitar stuff, but yeah, so it's just a little secret. You don't need a lot of money to make a movie, but it just takes longer. Anybody else? Yeah.
Curious which came first, golf or happiness?
Happiness, right. So I made the first cut of the film, and it was just a lot of people talking. It's still a lot of people talking, but I think that what they're saying is pretty compelling when they're just talking. But it was pretty clear I needed some sort of comedic foil or some counterpoint to that, you know, endless expert layman, you know, commentary. Not sure I completely solved that. I mitigated it, I think, and Eugene was great on camera. So I think of I used to teach in New York, and some former student of mine was, well, why don't you just go film some golfer trying to break 80? I mean, you're there, you know? And I was like, that's a really good idea. I think that can work. Because golf is an emotional roller coaster, you know? So it was the happiness narrative first, and the golf. Anybody else? Okay. Again, thanks, Ken. Thanks to Myth. And thanks to you all for coming.